Hello and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Morno Balagbogo. There's been a lot of conversations reacting to the state of emergency declared by President Bola Tinubu in Rivers State, but we will not be focusing on that at the beginning of our show today. This time around, we'll be looking at resolving the PDP internal crisis. Our talking points will focus on X-raying Supreme Court's verdict on the secretary position, also alleged rift between Damagun and Wike, and Fubara's suspension implications for the People's Democratic Party. And of course, later on the show, we'll examine and give you updates on emergency rule in Rivers State, matters arising. Our talking points will focus on the calls for Fubara's reinstatement, Fubara's alleged ties to militant group, and addressing security concerns. Well, our guest today joins us virtually from the Federal Capital Territory, Tonye Bakanista, PDP chieftain, former Chief Press Secretary, ECOWAS Youth Council. He'll be with us shortly. We'll take a quick breather. We'll be right back. The Supreme Court's ruling has left the People's Democratic Party at crossroads, with the party's leadership and members divided over the rightful occupant of the National Secretary's office, while the NWC and key party organs have thrown their weight behind Ude Okoye. Anyawu's supporters, led by Obi, remain defiant. The Supreme Court on Friday set aside the decision of the Court of Appeal, Enugu Division, delivered on the 20th of December 2024, which affirmed the removal of Senator Samuel Anyanwu as the National Secretary of the main opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP. In a unanimous judgment by five-member panel, the Apex Court ruled that matters concerning the leadership or membership of a political party are internal affairs and should not be subject to judicial intervention. The court held that the Federal High Court lacked jurisdiction to hear the matter initially brought by Angu Emmanuel. However, the judgment, expected to bring an end to the crisis, has left the PDP leadership and members in disarray, as both parties in the suit, Anyanwu and Ude Okoye, are claiming victory. The development threatens to disrupt the fragile peace the party has enjoyed since its organs unanimously endorsed Sunday Udo Okoye following the High Court's ruling in Enugu. Do recall back in April 2023, ahead of the Imo State governorship election, PDP delegates elected Senator Samuel Anyanwu as the party's governorship candidate. Even before the primaries, some party stakeholders raised concerns that Anyanwu's dual role as national secretary and governorship aspirant gave him an undue advantage. Recall they called on him to relinquish his position. But after Anyanwu secured the party's nod to contest the election, Southeast stakeholders convened in Enugu and appointed Sunday Ude Okoye, as a former national youth leader, as the party's national secretary. And of course, Anyanwu lost the election to Governor Hope Uzodinma, and he returned to the party's headquarters in Abuja only to be rebuffed, leading to a series of litigations. And recently, key party organs, including the Governors Forum, the Board of Trustees, BOT, and the NWC, endorsed Ude Okoye as the rightful national secretary. And on Sunday, Samuel Anyanwu said that the campaign to dislodge him from his post stemmed from his friendship with the Federal Capital Territory Minister, Nyesom Wike. Anyanwu also claims to have been restored, as he, and of course, as he has been a victim, rather, of some PDP members' proxy war against Wike, and he described his judicial triumph as a victory for the entire party and for justice. But is that really what the Supreme Court's ruling was based on? The fact that he has been reinstated. On the other side of the political divide in the PDP, a group known as the Conference of Professionals, CPPDP, backed Sunday Ude Okoye as the party's national secretary, leaving confusion. In their statement on Sunday, the group said it took the stand after a review of the issues in the party, as well as the recent Supreme Court judgment. It said it welcomed the judgment of the Supreme Court, which decisively affirmed the supremacy of political parties in the management of their internal affairs, including the determination of the officials membership, and even nomination of candidates for election, amongst others, to which the courts have no jurisdiction. Now, meanwhile, in the midst of all this, the chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Umar Damagun, last week disowned the South-South Zonal Congress that was organized by loyalists of the minister in Calabar, Cross River State. And a lot of people are making insinuations that there could be a possible rift between Damagun and Wike. Do recall on this show we've had PDP chieftains, tell us that Damagun is the sole problem of the PDP because of his alleged ties with the FCT minister. But guess what? If you've been following news in the reports, you would discover that the minister revoked the land occupancy rights of the National Secretariat of the People's Democratic Party. SSA to the minister Olayinka maintained that the party leaders should be held responsible for the party's failure to pay ground rent for 28 years, which led to the revocation. So why would Nyesom Wike, who is a bona fide member of the People's Democratic Party, at least some people want to believe, and he several times has made reference to the fact that he's still a sitting member of the People's Democratic Party, revoke the land of his own party? The recent 6 months suspension of Fubara is also raising concerns for the PDP party in terms of its weight in Nigerian politics. On Sunday, the chairman of the Board of Trustees to the People's Democratic Party, Adolf Walbara, faulted the president's decision to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State in a strongly worded statement, and he insists that Tinubu's actions violated the fundamental principles of Nigeria's constitution and called for immediate reversal. Now, on the show today, as the party grapples with these internal strife, the focus now shifts to whether the PDP can reconcile its factions and present a united front ahead of future elections. Do also recall a lot of their members have defected to the All Progressive Congress, adding to the already deepening crisis in the party. Well, Bakanista Tonye joins us virtually from Abuja. Thank you so much for being with us on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
So let's start with examining the divisive interpretation of the Supreme Court judgment over secretary position. Now, we've heard Anyanwu says that the Supreme Court's judgment reinstates him as secretary. On the other hand, Ude Okoye is also laying claims. We were thinking that the Supreme Court judgment will be the final nail in the coffin over this particular issue, but that happens to not be the case. So what are your thoughts on this development?
Well, my brother, thank you very much. You see, the Supreme Court has entered their judgment. I was in court on Friday, the 21st of March. In fact, I left home at 5:30 a.m. just to be in court. I was in court before 6 a.m. and I stayed outside until the court opened around the 8 o'clock. Then I moved into the courtroom. I was among the first to enter the courtroom. Why am I saying this? I witnessed the whole thing. I was not just in court to hear the outcome of the ruling, but to know how the honorable justices will arrive at that outcome. And I will say this: the lead judgment, by the way, the judgment was unanimous. Now, the lead judgment, first and foremost, set the template by discussing on jurisdiction. And it said nothing can be built on something. Sorry, nothing can be built on nothing. That jurisdiction is the first aspect of any matter to be considered in court. Now, it addressed the issue that the Enugu State High Court that entered judgment in favor of one Aniagu, which one Aniagu Emmanuel, which SK Udokoye benefited from. That High Court was not even supposed to have heard the matter because the political parties are in their rights to determine their leadership, and the court have no business to interfere in the internal leadership of the political parties. Now, it went further to say the appeal court majority ruling, because the appeal court judgments were split to upheld the judgment of the higher courts, while the minority judgment agreed with the prayers of Senator Samuel Anyanwu. Now, he now said the appeal court judgment in his majority ruling had a law for upholding the judgment of the trial court. Now, before then, the Supreme Court said Every political parties are voluntary organization, and each member is bound by the rules of those parties as written in their constitution and other legal documents. Now, again, let's go back to the PDP constitution. PDP is a political party. It's a voluntary organization. PDP has a constitution. Then every election cycle, PDP have what they call election guidelines. In the PDP constitution 2017 as amended, section 47, subsection 3B or so, is the constitution clearly says that a national officer or a member of the National Executive Committee that wishes to contest to vie for any public office may resign, giving 30-day notice. Now, I'm not quoting it verbatim. I don't have the constitution in my hand, is somewhere. But I'm just paraphrasing. You can fact check me. Now, Samuel Anyanwu, a national officer of the party, this constitution was written in 2017, long before Samuel Anyanwu even thought of running for governorship in 2023 or even becoming national secretary. When the constitution was written, Samuel Anyanwu vied for the senatorial position in 2019 and won. Sorry, in governorship position in 2019 in Imo State. Then he was not national secretary. He became national secretary in 2021. That is 4 years after the constitution was amended. Now, he wanted to run for governorship of Imo State. He applied for leave because he had the prerogative to whether to resign or not to resign. Some people chose to resign. For instance, the chairman of Taraba State, Agbu Kefas, wanted to be governor. He resigned to pick up the nomination form for Taraba State governorship, and he won the governorship. Samuel Anyanwu decided not to resign. I know some persons in Rivers State that contested, they did not resign. They won the election. After winning the election, they still did not resign until May 28th, when they took May 28th, they resigned to assume their respective offices.
Now, you yourself just gave precedents and examples of how people who were actually holding leadership positions in the party, had contested for elections and then came back to resume that particular position on the occasion where they did not, finally make it through. So on these grounds that you have just given, is that you trying to say that Anyanwu still holds power?
Yes, it is not that he can still hold it. It's about he's still there. You cannot replace a man, or I cannot replace in your organization when you are still occupying the position you're occupying. The only way you can be replaced, either you are elevated and that will become vacant, you are fired, God forbid, a disease, or you resign. You understand? So there is no way you can say a man whether he can still hold it. It's not about whether he can still hold it. It's about whether he's still there. Yeah, he's still there. He has been holding it. And let me also tell you again, this issue was litigated at the Federal High Court. In the submission of the PDP National Chairman, Ambassador Umar Damagu, and the PDP via affidavit, they said that Anyanwu did not resign. Anyanwu applied for leave to run for office. Let me also go back to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court went further to state that from the records and from the facts and evidence presented by the PDP National Chairman, Ambassador Leah Damagu, and the PDP as an organization, that Umar Damagu is the national chairman of the PDP. Senator Samuel Nnameka Anyanwu is the national secretary. It went further to say the man that instituted the case at the Enugu High Court, that man is a meddlesome interloper because he has no business whatsoever, and he will not even be a beneficiary in this whole thing. Then the Supreme Court now question that Udo Okoye, of what legal ground is he laying claim that even in the suit, he's not a party to the suit, and they christened him an impostor. Why they christened the man that filed the suit, Emmanuel Anyanwu, as a meddlesome interloper? You understand? So now the question is, what did the PDP internal procedure says? So it's not Anyanwu the first. Let us digress a bit. Omoyele Sowore is the national chairman of AAC. Sowore was the presidential candidate in 2019 as national chairman of the party. He was still the presidential candidate in 2023 as national chairman. Why is there no noise? Because AAC constitution allows for it. Yaba Gisani of ADP, he was the presidential candidate in 2019 and as concurrently national chairman, and 2023, why is he holding position of national chairman? In fact, even at that time, he was even the chairman of IPAC. Why was there no noise in ADP? Because their constitution allows it. Mela Buni of Yobe State, he was the national secretary of the party. He became the governorship candidate. He never resigned because the constitution allowed it. He only sought for leave. And he went to contest the election. He won. He resumed as the national secretary, or rather, he resumed back to work as national secretary. On May 28, 2019, that was when he tendered his resignation to say, I am no longer the national secretary. I want to face my calling as the governor, because the constitution said, in AP said, you are banned from holding party position once you hold a position in the government, in the public service, or in the civil service at the state, federal, or at the state level, federal level, or even in the local government level. So why is now someone here on? Why has it become so much of a news?
Now, let's move over to those in the party. You have the Board of Trustees, the PDP Governors Forum, who are also using that same ruling of the Supreme Court as basis for insisting that Udo Okoye still remains the secretary of the party. What are your thoughts on that?
Brother, let me just, political parties are formal organizations. They are not a Sawana village group or Zogu or any informal gathering. But every formal institution, they are guided by their rules, either bylaws or constitution, and other legal instruments that lay down how things are done. Now, the question is, which organ has the power to elect or disengage an officer of the party at national level? The PDP constitution is clear. It's the National Convention. The National Convention is the only organ that has that power. Every organ has their role. Let me give you, for instance, the Board of Trustees is an advisory organ. It's not an executive organ. The National Executive Committee is an executive organ, but it is subordinate to the National Convention. The NWC is not an executive organ. It's a working committee. They carry out the directive of the National Executive Committee, and they also propose to the National Executive Committee whenever core issues are to be taken. The Governors Forum is not an organ of the PDP. The Governors Forum is more like a peer group or a support group. There is nothing like Governors Forum in PDP constitution. So again, it's just like National Union of Road Transport Workers, National Union of Teachers, the Senate caucus, PDP Senate caucus, PDP Reps caucus. Now, these are not organs of the party. These are groups formed by like minds to advance their own interests within the party. So when they say the party should decide, the party should in line with their rules. Now, let me cast your mind back. In 2019, you know that the Supreme Court upheld the disqualification of the candidate of APC in Zamfara and River State. Do you know why? Let me even address some of these things, because most time in this country, people read news headline. A court says this and this. They don't go to the details, and it's unfortunate that this saying that if you want to hide the thing from the black man, put it inside the book. Understand? It's unfortunate that that saying is becoming true in this my contemporary time. In 2018, a section of APC in River State that are purportedly loyal to Magnum Sabi, they paid for nomination form for their world congresses. The party in River State did not issue them the form. They went to court, and the court invalidated that world congress. The APC disregarded that ruling. They went ahead to do their primaries and all of that. When they went back to court, the court said, you cannot build something on nothing. Your rule says, once you pay so amount, you'll be issued nomination forms for congresses. Now, a certain persons, these people have paid. There are evidence of them being paid, but there's no evidence that you issue them the forms. Therefore, whatever you have done is null and void. And they were disqualified from the trial court up to the Supreme Court. In Zamfara State, so their candidate, even when the APC National Committee and they endorsed the primaries done in River State, and the INEC endorsed it, and they submitted to INEC, and INEC endorsed it, the court said, no, you cannot build something on nothing. You cannot flout your own rules. That was why they were disqualified, up to the Supreme Court.
So if I may interrupt you, okay, please go ahead.
Let me answer. It's very important that I address this. In Zamfara State, APC had a schedule for the nomination of candidates. Now, 3 days to that time, they dissolved the Oshomole-led NWC, dissolved the working committee in Zamfara State, and suspended Governor Abdulaziz Yari. Now, on that said date of primaries, it never held. They never submitted to INEC any list of candidates on the INEC deadline. Afterwards, they now submitted candidates. Senator Marafa went to court to say APC has flouted their own rules because on the day of their own primary that they scheduled, they never held the primary. And INEC also testified that on their own deadline, before the deadline, APC never nominated candidates in Zamfara State. Even when APC fielded candidates due to the judgment of the appeal court, Supreme, and they won elections across in all the constituencies and governorship, the Supreme Court said APC has no candidate in Zamfara State, nullified their victory, and handed the victory to the party that scored the second highest, which is the PDP. That's why PDP won in Zamfara State in 2019. So now, when they say a political party should determine their internal process, they don't say that anybody can just do anything anyhow, but you should subject yourself to the constitution of the party.
Now, I'm curious to know your comments on Anyawu's recent comments saying that he's a victim of proxy war with Wike. Given the past precedents of Wike, who has, described as playing anti-party games, on those grounds, would you say a proxy war is justified? And how does that make him a victim? Is he not working with Wike, so to speak?
For me, I have always held one mantra: equity, fairness, rule of law, and justice. These are my mantra in politics, and this is why I'm in politics. Before Nyesom Wike assumed the ministerial position, Nyesom Wike wrote the National Working Committee. Nyesom Wike wrote the Zonal Executive Committee of South-South. Nyesom Wike wrote the Governor of Rivers State. Nyesom Wike wrote the State Executive Committee of Rivers, and also that of his local government, Obiakpo, and his ward. He also wrote the Governors Forum of PDP. All these organs consented to him taking up the ministerial position. The Governors Forum even sent delegation to him to congratulate him. And Bala Mohammed stated that his appointment, the appointment of Nyesom Wike, is a call to service for the people of Nigeria, and is a testament that PDP has working materials to get Nigeria working again. I'm paraphrasing him, but he said this along this line.
Okay, Tony, you can go ahead.
Point, hold on now. Senator Anyanwu, sorry for interjecting, Senator Anyanwu and Wike have been friends since 1999 when they were elected as local government chairman. As things went on, there was internal political factors ahead of 2027. Some people wanted Wike out by all means, and they now feel that they couldn't fight Wike. They are now launching proxy wars. So you see, why should you fight Anyanwu? Because you want to fight proxy war against Wike. Anyanwu and Wike friendship predated when he became national secretary, 1999. And I am here today now, a member of PDP. Are you saying that if you, my friend, if you become a chairman of another party, I will not be a friend with you? Or if you are serving the government of a rival party, I will not be friends with you. I cannot do that. Even the PDP are saying, is Atiku not maintain his friendship with Bola Tinubu? Didn't they attend his article not maintain his relationship with the Nuhu Ribadu, the NSA? Article's son is an in-law to Nuhu Ribadu's daughter. He even served as a PA to Nuhu Ribadu. Did anybody go over Article's head? The governors, when they go to the Nigerian Governors Forum meeting, don't they work together? Are they showing that you are PDP and APC, therefore will not interact? So you see, he's just giving a dog a bad name just to kill it.
Now, before now, it has been believed that Damagun was siding with Wike, but his disownment of the South-South Congress and Wike's revoking occupancy rights of his party seems to suggest that the relationship is strained. Don't you think that further deepens the crisis within your party?
You see, I love when people make certain insinuation. To set the record straight, Damagun is not serving Wike. Damagun is not serving anybody. Damagun is serving the party. Now, the issue of the South-South Zonal Congress, you see, I am a firm supporter of Damagun, a strong supporter. Let me tell you why I support Damagun. First, before I go further, because Damagun always abide by the legal process of the party. And Damagun played a lot of role in this case in the Supreme Court that led to this landmark judgment. But I will tell you something. Damagun did not cancel the South-South Zonal Congress. The PDP governors from the South-South zone said they pressured the NWC, not Damagun, that the South Congress, that they were not able to participate because they had engagement on the said date, February 22nd, 2025. And therefore, it should be rescheduled. But let me tell you one truth. How, again, like I said, a political party is a formal organization. Everything about the party, every activity have its defined process, procedures, process and rules. Now, how do you conduct a zonal congress or even a state congress? First and foremost, the national secretariat or the zonal secretariat, anywhere it may originate from, they notify, for the purpose of the conversation, National Secretariat notified INEC on October 2024 and also notified the South-South Zonal Working Committee through the chairman, High Chief Dano Siobi, that the then current Zonal Working Committee and ex-official members tenure is to expire on the 22nd of February 2025. And they now fixed that set date as for the Congress of the South-South Zone. Now, INEC was notified. In line with the PDP Constitution, this one is in line with INEC procedure now. In line with the PDP Constitution, the Zonal Working Committee summoned a meeting of the Zonal Executive Committee at the instance of the National Vice Chairman, Dan Obi. Now, that Zonal Executive Committee scheduled February 22nd for the Zonal Congress. Let me tell you, in PDP Constitution, only the Zonal Executive Committee have power to convey and set the agenda for a Zonal Congress. Only the Zonal Executive Committee is in the PDP Constitution. Now, the Zonal Congress was held on that set date, February 22nd, 2025. And that was it. Now, let me tell you one thing. The problem is that the governors of the party, perhaps they don't understand. They have to agree that political parties is not an extension of the office of the executive governor. The governors of the party, there are 4 of them, and they have 4 votes each. Now, their president, legal president, and let me cast it back. In 2012, Ogun State chapter of PDP took the National Committee to court, to Federal Court in Lagos, under the Honorable Justice Abdul Malik. I'm giving you dates and I'm calling names. And the court ruled that going by the PDP Constitution, it is the State Executive Committee that has power to call for the State Congress, not the National Working Committee, not even the National Executive Committee. In 2016, the same Ogun State chapter approached the Federal Court, and the court also ruled, upheld the judge ruled. In fact, that 2012 judgment was appealed up to the Supreme Court, and PDP NWC lost Ogun State chapter 1. In 2016, similar suit occurred, and the court ruled again, the Federal Court in Lagos, that it is the State Executive Committee that have power to conduct Congress, not the national. In 2020, Uche Secondo's-led National Committee filed a similar suit before Honorable Justice Omotosho at the Federal High Court Abuja to say that Ogun State Chapter and Ogun State Executive Committee lacks the power to convene a Ogun State Congress. The court also held again that the state chapter of a party through the State Executive Committee are empowered to convene and set agenda for the state congresses, and also executive committees at all levels are empowered. Now, let me tell you, who has power to call for national convention, which is like the Congress in state and zone, is the National Executive Committee. Who has power to call for a zonal Congress? It is Zonal Executive Committee. Who has power to call for Congress of a state? It is the Executive Committee. So, what they did, or what they purportedly did, well, they are right to associate. But for me, I don't think it can stand the test of time. Don't forget also, a Federal High Court in Abuja also directed that the zonal Congress in South should not be stopped. Let me also tell you again, there was also, on that set 22nd, there was a zonal Congress in Northeast. Atiku Abubakar boycotted it. Did he stop this zonal Congress from holding? No. On that February 22nd. Let's move further again. When PDP wanted to notify, purportedly now, notify INEC of a rescheduled zonal Congress, what happened? Acting National Chairman, Ambassador Umar Damagu, wrote a letter on the 20th. Zonal Congress held on the 22nd. INEC was there on the 22nd to monitor that zonal Congress. Then on the 25th, Damagu and Udokoye, who the Supreme Court has now defined as an impostor, wrote a letter to INEC to say they are rescheduling the zonal Congress. INEC did not even know that correspondence. I am very much aware of it. INEC did not know that correspondence. Understand? Because an exercise has been conducted. Then you now take a letter on the 25th, 3 days after the exercise has been conducted, and say this, that they want to reschedule. Come on, that's not it works. Now,
so in essence, you're saying this relationship is not strained, or there is no dimension whatsoever to whether he's friends with Wike or not in the first instance to, suggest that this could further strain the relationship and affect your party further.
No. It will be I'm not perturbed, actually. You see, if you actually follow my line of thought, when the issue of the national secretary, even when the national chairman was also under kind of pseudo contest, I still maintain that, look, the position of the law, it is not, the law will not bend to satisfy the prerogative of any individual. The law with the law, it's individual that will bend to satisfy the provisions of the law. Now, for this issue of South Congress and the caretaker, for me, I see it as a non-issue. Because the national, when the Congress was done, the zonal secretariat of the party communicated to the national secretariat through the office of the national secretary, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, and he received the correspondence and he acknowledged it. So there is nothing that has been done to otherwise. If anything, then as I told it to you now, there's a case at the Federal High Court on this issue of the zonal Congress. Because don't forget that the court on February 21st, 25, Federal High Court by Justice, is it a Justice, I've forgotten, Equo, this is Equo, directed that nothing should stop the Congress. Understand? And the Congress went on, and the case is still in court. So I wish all of them good luck.
Now, let's also look at Governor Fubara's suspension. What are the implications for your party? We all know that he's a stakeholder, and his suspension reduces the number of PDP governors. So what does that say about your game for 2027?
Fubara is a stakeholder in our party, is a leader in our party. But it's unfortunate that the PDP Governors Forum, they are now acting like an afterthought. Why did I say so? When this whole drama started in 2023, the same PDP Governors Forum, they told the acting national chairman that he should hands off from the issue of Fubara and Wike, that will propose solution. The national chairman met with Wike and told them, I said, look, any proposal from the PDP governor's room, even if it does not 100% satisfy what you want, your desire, please accept. Wike was like, well, the party is supreme. Up till now, the PDP governor's room have not proposed anything to solve the crisis. Instead, some of them were playing hanky-panky and playing politics with it, with Fubara, Wiki, and all of that. I always say one thing, that you don't wait for things to happen before you start looking for a solution. When you see an issue that has potential of creating crisis, address that issue to avert the crisis. Now, they want to go to Supreme Court. Our PDP governor is saying that their members in the National Assembly, they don't have control over them. Why couldn't they reach out to their members in the National Assembly to have meeting with PDP caucus of National Assembly to say, look, this is the position of our party. This is what we should do. This is what we should not do. Let us argue. Let us, instead of emergency, let us allow the governor and the assembly grace of a period to see how they can work together and manage their issues. They never did. What they did is just face-saving press statement by Bala Mohammed. Later they met on Zoom, and that is it. No action. All talk, no action. So that is the problem of the PDP as of today. The governors, not all, most of them are insincere. Do they like Fubara? I don't think so. I love Fubara, and I've been on the side of Fubara, but I've been on the side of truth.
So yeah, you talked about inaction of these lawmakers. What does it say about your party, as some have defected, citing internal party crisis?
You cannot blame the party. I said something earlier. The governors said Fubara is their colleague governor, Wike is their former colleague, that they will handle the issue, that the party should answer. So it is no longer what the party now. It's not the responsibility of the governors. What did the governors do about it? Wike has not been a lawmaker. Fubara is not a lawmaker. So the lawmakers, they have little, or they have maybe limited relationship with Wike and Fubara. If the party, for instance, had intervened the way the chairman wanted to, trust me, the lawmakers and every organ would have sat down with the governor and Nyesom Wike to iron out a clear path for peace, to at least for the next 4 years, 2027, before everybody can part ways. However, the governors assumed authority of the issue. You understand? So now it's out of the party, and the governors failed. So this is emergency. To me, I see as a failure of the governor. Now, for the record, my position is an emergency. I'm indifferent in sense that when I agree that the governor did not send those militants, or rather, there is no evidence to suggest that the governor sponsored or instigated those militants to threaten chaos, violence, and even perpetrating SIM allegedly. Because of the Supreme Court ruling. But I also feel that the governors men were not proactive enough. What do I mean? When a threat is issued, it is left for those that the governor has a responsibility to act swiftly to address it. Now, the federal government is not sincere. Why do I say so? The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. All the security agencies and apparatus are under his beck and call. The federal government also is responsible for the protection of oil facilities and other national assets of the party, of the country, sorry. Now, if there's any threat to that, the security report should have indicated the real perpetrators, and the federal government sent them to go against them. The emergency is just a way of taking advantage of the situation to arrest the resources and the politics of River State. That is where I see it. So again, it's a twofold thing. Now, should the president have suspended the governor? Well, to be honest with you again, I'm indifferent. But what I feel is that the president has no power to suspend a governor. But the state emergency automatically suspends the powers of the governor. The president has no power to suspend the legislators in the states. The state of emergency has already suspended their powers. So Fubara is still the governor of Rivers State, but the powers of the governor is no longer with him till the next 6 months. Hopefully, if that will not be extended. Amewule led house, they are still members of the Rivers House Assembly, but their powers to make laws and carry out their legislative functions as provided in the Constitution has been suspended. So I get offended when they call Fubara suspended governor. You cannot suspend the governor, but you can suspend his powers through the state of emergency. Fubara still has immunity, but it doesn't enjoy the authority of that office. So that's why I disagree with that. I am suspending the governors of the assembly. I disagree with that. You don't have power to suspend a governor, and I hold on to that.
Our time is almost up. We want to thank you so much, Toye, for sharing your thoughts with us on the show.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
All right, now we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we will move into updates on the emergency rule in Rivers State. Matters are rising, and trust me, it is getting hotter. We'll take a quick breather to stay with us.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues?
Order.
The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join Ellen 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I was corrupt.
I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch politics now on Ellen 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on LN 24/7.
Glad to have you back. You're still on to Politics Now right here on LN 24/7. We're moving forward with our updates on the Rivers emergency rule. I mean, it's just been quite the reactions from every part of the political spectrum, whether you're APC, whether you're opposition. And as you've been following, those in the president's party are justifying the president's actions. But we'll give you updates regarding the calls for Fubara's reinstatement and Fubara's alleged ties to militant group and addressing security concerns. Now, do recall that amidst concerns raised over the week, last week to be precise, about the absence of the Governor Siminalayi Fubara, he was spotted at Salvation Ministries in Port Harcourt, and his appearance comes days after President Bola Tinubu declared a state of emergency on Tuesday, citing escalating tensions and security concerns, while the decision has sparked mixed reactions from political stakeholders, legal practitioners, and civil society groups. The newly appointed sole administrator has wasted no time in assuming office. Now, Fubara has also refuted this morning, linking him with militant groups, dismissing recent social media posts and videos as fake and malicious attempts to incite tension in the state. In a statement issued by his chief press secretary, Nelson Chukwudi, the Fubara government condemned the circulation of fabricated videos purportedly depicting explosions at oil and gas facilities in the state. The statement clarified that the affected communities have debunked the claims, assuring that all critical infrastructure remains intact. And if you've been following our broadcast today, right here on the morning show, our guest also made mention of the fact that the disruption of a pipeline was not as a result of militant, intervention or some sort, but rather as a result of the dilapidating infrastructure in place with regards to the pipeline themselves corroding due to weather and all of that. And there have been calls in the past for those particular infrastructure to be put in place. So that kind of moves away the narrative that maybe explosions here and there are also taking off in Rivers State, which actually prompted the president to bring in this state of emergency rule, because you recall that one of the valid points of the president, according to him, was the fact that The governor did not take sole due responsibility of the security of the state, not to talk of the infrastructure, which is very important in Nigeria because Nigeria is a key exporter of crude oil. And since taking over, he has made several strategic moves. This is coming from the spokesman of Governor Fubara, saying that he has taken several strategic moves, including holding emergency security meetings with law enforcement agencies. I'm actually referring to the sole administrator who has taken over from Fubara. And of course, he's also had talks with traditional rulers and heads of local government administration, where he confirmed the release of withheld allocation and ordered the immediate processing of the payment of local government workers. He has also inspected the ongoing reconstruction of the State House of Assembly complex, promising to ensure its timely completion to ensure stability in governance. Now, in defense of, all the noise, I wouldn't call it noise now, but more of concerns over the president's actions lately, the House of Reps, in defense of the state of emergency declaration, to be precise, lawmaker Dawodu Bashiru defended the use of voice votes by the House of Representatives, arguing that while the lawmakers use the electronic voting in some matters, he said the House of Representatives is not bound to do so in all situations. In the meantime, though the president cited pipeline explosions in the state and the need for peace for his action, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Alpha Mosigwe, who was also on our morning show today, condemned the move and asked for the reinstatement of Governor Fubara. Now, there's also growing concerns in the state as regards security. A secret report is saying that militant leaders have regrouped at an undisclosed Creek community to plan and coordinate collective attacks on oil facilities, which triggers fresh tension in the Niger Delta over the weekend. And that source said militant leaders wanted to ensure full participation of various militant groups in the Niger Delta and were holding wide consultations with leaders. And also Commander Bibi Oduku, the Commandant General of the Riverine Security Coast Guard of the Federation, confirmed the high threats in the Niger Delta and probable impact on Nigeria's economy, admonishing President Bola Tinubu to reconsider the suspension of Fubara. So those are the updates, but quite the concerns there. The sole administrator that has resumed his duties as acting administrator of the state, what is the sole justification or what is the belief that he will be able to curtail some of the security concerns that have been raised? Do recall that in the statement put out today by Governor Fubara's chief press secretary, he made mention of the fact that the president is cooperating with the injunction of the president and calling for calm amidst all of this. But it's quite interesting to note that we've not even heard from the minister of the FCT. And I was reading an editorial this morning while preparing on the show. Actually, one of our production crew members sent me some thoughts which I find very interesting. The minister is someone who is quite vocal anytime that he's engaged with to comment on issues and matters regarding his state. But since President Tinubu's declaration of the state of emergency, he has not yet put out any word nor statement, and we are following and monitoring things closely. But is this quite surprising? Because some of the points out there is that President Bola Tinubu has outgamed Wike's play, because do recall, he's on record saying that he would make Rivers State ungovernable for Governor Fubara, and that word he has kept. He has truly kept that word. The state remained practically ungovernable. Recall the governor going to the House of Assembly to present the budget, and the gates were shut. I mean, we covered all of that on the show. So how will a state make progress with that kind of political activity going on? So which also justified those on the camp of the president, those in the APC who are saying, yes, the president is justified to do that. But what about the National Assembly and its role in checkmating some of the activities of the executive that has been critically faulted, because the National Assembly would require 2/3 of its members to actually put out a vote. But going by voice voting, Some people find that quite laughable because there was no clear counting of lawmakers to be critically sure that they had the number of votes needed to actually pull through with that ruling of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And the talking point of the National Assembly is that they have sole jurisdiction to decide whichever way they want to actually go about their activities. But does that not sound illegal and unconstitutional? Because there were quite a number of lawmakers who were not in plenary on that particular set day. So is it that their votes did not matter? So assuming you had a situation where 10 to 20 lawmakers were on session, if they went with the vote yes or no voice votes, what happened to the people that are being represented at the National Assembly? So many people will find that quite laughable. And a lot of people are very excited about the reaction of the Nigerian Bar Association, who strongly condemn the action of the president. And right now, there are calls for Fubara to be reinstated. But of course, political pundits have put it clearly that this is a play for 2027. Do recall that the special assistant to the president has made it clear that the president is clearly not interested in the dynamics or permutations of what 2027 is going to be. But we'll beg to differ because the actions of the president says otherwise. Everything points to 2027. The recent defection of lawmakers points to the fact that there is a plot to put out the opposition, as clearly alleged by Atiku Abubakar and the former governor of Kaduna State. So everything keeps unfolding. Because for those who justify the president's actions, is Rivers State the only state where there is political crisis? What about Osun State? We're talking about Osun State. Well, we are seeing chieftains from the PDP and APC attacking themselves. What can be said of Osun State? People have died as a result of that political crisis. So why did the president not actually call for a state of emergency in Osun State? Or you want to move to Borno State, Zamfara State, and some other states in the north? Are there not crises? Are crises not persistent in those states? What happened to state of emergency in those states? And making reference to the declaration made by Goodluck Jonathan, of course, legal minds have practically backed President Goodluck Jonathan's decision as at the time that he had this kind of action in play, talking about the state of emergency declaration. And it is raising concerns for our democracy that a democratically elected governor will just be suspended just like that for 6 months, not even 2 months, not even 3 months, but for 6 months. So for those who say that the president has a plot to twat the opposition and cripple them, do they not have a point? Well, the answer is for you to figure it out. But the real concern for a lot of people now in Rivers State, because according to our reporting that we've been following, there seems to be peace and stability at the moment in Rivers State, Port Harcourt to be precise. But what about other regions, especially the riverine areas? That, of course, has a lot of the country's infrastructure in terms of crude oil and all other things that has to do with the production of oil. And that is very key for the president. Do recall his last call for the re-exploration of oil in Ogoniland. So Rivers State is a state that is very important to this administration. And just like Donald Trump made in his inaugural address that he is going to drill, baby drill, the administration of President Bola Tinubu is very keen on exploring oil resources in the state. But who is the sole who benefits solely from this crisis? Of course, it all points down to the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because there are so many people, political pundits who are making reference to the fact that even the FCT minister will likely not benefit, because at the moment, the game solely lies in the hands of the president and not Nyesom Wike as it was before, with his influence over the 27 lawmakers who defected. And by the way, it's not just the governor who is suspended, but also those lawmakers. And the president also is being faulted for giving permission to the sole administrator to make regulations, a lot of people are calling that unconstitutional. The National Assembly is supposed, in the absence of the non-functionality of the state legislative arm, the National Assembly is supposed to step in. That is what the law says. So the National Assembly is supposed to make laws for the state in the absence of the non-functionality of the State Assembly. But that seems to not be the case. We'll be monitoring developments regarding the Rivers political crisis, and definitely with this calls pressuring the president, will he bulge? Will he give in to this call with his concerns, or will he keep on keeping on with his game at the moment? But of course, there are a lot of people who will argue that the president is all about security. And as many people have put it, security is very important. And if the lives of people are involved, then every decision by the president is justified. But the big question is, Rivers State the only state with political crisis? Well, you know the answer. Once again, that's the most we can take on the show today. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mono. Bye for now.